Hello, everyone. This is Christine with Black Tea News, and I had the most incredible journey in Israel. And in this video, we're going to talk about what I did on day one. So I have a preliminary video that was leading up to the journey, and this is the video starting on day one. So we'll continue on with day two, day three, etc., etc. But um, I had an amazing time. But before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream, run my site, all that good stuff. So you guys can support. I very much appreciate you guys. You guys even helped me to come to Israel. So I very much appreciate you guys so much. Also, you guys can check out different merchandise is available, different t-shirts, different mugs, and also different books that I have as well. I write fiction, nonfiction, children's picture books like My Book Bigger, that just came out. And also I have, young adult, new adults, all kinds of different stuff for people across different like categories and so on. So go ahead and check that out if you have the opportunity. There's a link in the description that'll take you to that stuff, but it's easy to find. You go to blacktnews.com, go to the merchandise page. There's a banner that'll take you to my book site where you can look at my books, but all my other merch, it's available right there on blacktnews.com. So anyway, I'm so excited. So when I landed in Israel, when you're on the plane, which by the way, I didn't mention in the last video, when they started kind of moving the plane before we were all sat down and like buckled in. I'm like, this is different. But anyway, when we landed in Israel and overhead on the speaker, they mentioned the four hostages that they were still like praying for them to come home. And I was a little confused. I'm like, I know they already had the ceasefire agreement and they brought the hostages home. But at that point they were talking about the four bodies of hostages that had not been returned. And I think one since then had been returned to it ended up changing to three. So to me, what really struck me throughout the trip is just how much they really care for their fellow man, for their people. They also care for other, people as well, and deeply, deeply care for also the Palestinian people, and do not want to take the lives of civilians, which we'll get into that in other videos. But they deeply care about themselves and their people and the people who were taken and the families who were impacted um, because of what happened on October the 7th. And they constantly remind themselves to be there for each other. And I just really thought that that was really touching. So you land on the plane, like that's something that's in their everyday life. Like we cannot forget about these people. And in this case, it's just the bodies that have not been returned, but that those bodies are still important to those families. So that was really striking. So we got off the airplane, got our stuff, went through customs and it changed. And then we met Peter. Peter was our tour guide, and Peter was a gem.
Our trip is this mix, so we're going to have days that are dedicated to current affairs. We're going to have days that are dedicated to biblical affairs and biblical theories. And I promise you that after this week, you will need a vacation for your vacation. And it is a very busy thing, and we're a small group, so we'll try to slow down when possible. That being said, we're leaving the airport area and we're making our way towards the city of Tel Aviv, right? And the second largest city in Israel after Jerusalem.
And he did a great job. And if you could get Peter to do your tours, um, I recommend. And Peter is Jewish, but he said Jesus pays my bills, so he does a lot of tours for different Christian groups and organizations and stuff. And you actually have to go to school to be like a tour guide and to learn all the stuff, which it makes sense because he knew so much, obviously, about the areas that we're going in. and knew a lot about the New Testament, at least the gospel. He had ended up mentioning that he hadn't read like Romans and like other parts that were like non-related to the different sites that they were kind of going to. Very knowledgeable, funny, and really bonded with all of us. And I really adored Peter. So Peter was our tour guide. Destiny was our contact with Kufai, who gathered us all together. And then there was Jason. Jason is he's into like political content and does like lives and talks about this different kind of stuff. But he's also in the entertainment industry. Like he's an actor who's done some stuff that I'm aware of, like The Terminalist and One Tree Hill. He there's also Chi Chi and Tracy. They're a married couple. Tracy was the newest convert to Christianity. She converted like 6 years ago. Chi Chi and Tracy were so cute. And they have a podcast with Annalie because they all used to go to the same church, but Tracy and Chi Chi ended up moving. But they have a podcast together. And then we had Eman, short for Emmanuel, but everyone calls him Eman, who does a lot of mission work with a school, and they take different people to the mission field and like rough like mission field. We're gonna spread the gospel. Very admirable and very knowledgeable about the gospel. And also we had Blake, who was the youngest among us, and he was going to Oral Roberts school, and he's done like mission work in a lot of different places, been around the block a lot. And I was probably the least traveled among everybody. I don't know, because I've been around the country. In the US, I've been to Canada. I haven't been to Canada in a minute though, but the only place I really went overseas was the Philippines, and I was in 10th grade when that happened. I guess I had a layover in Japan, but that was about it. So, man, I wanted to spend more time in Japan. Oh, I was so heartbroken when we went off on that plane. And then someone that I did recognize was Maddie. Online, you may know her as that opinionated girl, and she got recognized quite a few times in Israel. But her stuff really I don't know how big her account was prior to like October 7th, but I saw her content really about a lot of stuff with October 7th, and pro Israel content. And man, people stitch her stuff, argue with her all the time, and she goes into different lives. And you know and she's just very kind of firm and stiff when she delivers her lines, which she usually does in like one take with no script. And if she messes up, she'll just kind of start over, I guess. But she was so bubbly and light, and people compared her to a little bunny. And Maddie was just so sweet. And so the rest of us, she's the only Catholic there. The rest of us were, like evangelical Protestants. And we all just had a fantastic time with one another. But anyway, we ended up starting off with a food tasting tour in Tel Aviv at like a food market. And they went through the history of like the food market a bit, which was pretty interesting. And uh, before all that started, we parked the bus. We went through this like park, and Maddie had to go to the bathroom, so Peter took her off to the bathroom. And so I was contemplating, like, I don't really have to use the bathroom, but should I go? Because I feel like I have a small bladder. And I didn't want to be that person who was like, hey, we got to stop the whole trip because I need to pee. I didn't want to be that person. So I decided with myself that every opportunity to use the bathroom, I would just go try. Um, I really didn't have to go at that point, but I'm like, maybe should I go? And so I'm contemplating that, and we're kind of like crossing the street. And so there's like these barrier things all over the place. And I don't know, I guess to stop cars from like driving on the sidewalks and things like that. Um, I did not see it. So as I'm crossing the street, I can see in front of me as I'm crossing the street. I guess I just didn't look down. And I trip over that. I tried to restore my balance. It did not work. And I fell in the street. And God bless, the men who like quickly came to help me up. I just remember like arms just being on the both side of me, like helping me get up very quickly. Um, but man, that was embarrassing. Like nobody was like, ah, no, like nobody teased me or anything like that. There wasn't like any kind of laughter. Everyone was concerned because it was a bad spill. So my hand was like red. I wasn't bleeding, but it was like red. And my arms hurt a bit, but my knees hurt, and my right knee, I it's swollen up, and I had a couple scratches, and it was bruised. And I'm like, oh, those bruises will probably be there for a while, because when I was in high school, um we were playing dodgeball, and I like dove for third base or something like that, or home or whatever. And I did pretty good in dodgeball. I'm sorry, it wasn't dodgeball, it was kickball. Sorry, it was kickball. It was kickball. And I I ended up bruising up my knees, and they were like bruised forever. So I don't know what it is about my knees. But I'm like, oh gosh, they're gonna be bruised for a minute. And so nothing was broken. So we were all like happy about that. I don't think Peter knows about that spill, because I think Peter would have been concerned about his insurance. But I was okay. I could still walk and stuff. But it did hurt. You know, my j- my pants would brush against my knee, or when a chair would brush against my knee, I could definitely feel it. But not because it was something's broken. It was bruised. So I definitely very early on took the mantle of being the klutz of the trip. And I ended up sending a picture of the thing that I tripped over in my group chat to my siblings, and my sister Katrina like immediately like LOL'd, and my sister Gina, the eldest among us, asked if I was okay. I'm like, yeah, thanks for asking. I'm okay. Katrina's like, well, I just figured nothing was broken. I'm like, okay, whatever. But yeah. Anyway, continuing on their journey, we learned a bit about the market and the history and so on.
Well, you see, it started as a very small community, and then it was kind of like this suburban utopia. And it was established 1909. 100 years ago, markets mean horses, donkeys, mattresses with cabbage on the street, which means, forgive my French, horse poo, donkey poo, rats. It's very dirty. It's not what they imagined. And you don't need a market. You want to buy vegetables, you go to Jaffa. It's a 20-minute walk. There's the market there for 3,000 years, no problem. You buy your vegetables there. You want to get a good cake or good coffee. There's a German colony 20 minutes that way. You go there, you can have coffee, Apfelstrudel, coffee with cream, whatever you want. So there's no need. But then in the 1920s, 1930s, two processes happened at the same time which make this market appear. First, as persecutions in Europe increase, immigration to Israel increases. So what started with just a few dozen families in 1909, a decade later it's 2,500 people. Another decade later it's 25,000 people. In 1948, right before Israel is established, almost 250,000 people live here, a third of all the Jewish community. So with so many people, you're going to need some way to sell food. It's not a small community anymore. Now, at the same time, relations vis-a-vis the Arabs deteriorate. There are riots. People get killed there. People are afraid to go there. So they don't enjoy going shopping in Jaffa. The Germans, and not many people know this, half of them joined the Nazi Party, which means that until 1945, when the Second World War breaks out, there are actually Nazi parades every first Sunday of the month in the streets of Tel Aviv, with the swastika and the Heil Hitler and everything. So, it's maybe allowed under, freedom of speech, but obviously Jews are not going to go buy from them either. And so this market appears. But it doesn't start here, it starts in Russia. See, 1909, when the city is established, one of the people that is in charge of raising money and funds goes to Russia, and he convinces some rich Jews to invest in what one day will be the great metropolitan city of Tel Aviv. And they happily do so. They give you money and they buy lands. And they pretty much forget about it until 1917. What happens in 1917 in Russia? Communist revolution. After the communist revolution, do we like people with money? Not so much. Do we like Jewish people? Not so much. Do we like Jewish people with a lot of money? Really not so much. So the lucky ones that can sell whatever they can before it's nationalized, grab their things and they want to get out of there. But where are they going to go? Who's going to accept them? They have lands in the great metropolitan city of Tel Aviv. So they come here and they have the biggest disappointment of their lives. Okay? It's not a big metropolitan city. It's still a very, very small, tiny city back then. And turns out that the lands that were bought for them are not exactly prime location. The lands were bought at the very end of an Arab village that used to live to the north of here. The last lands, the land where the villagers actually can't grow anything. And they were very happy to get rid of them. And lucky for us, these guys were not two things. One, okay, they were not lazy. Because if they were lazy, they would just run away. Two, they were not farmers. If they were farmers, they would somehow grow something out of the land. But they're not farmers. They don't know what to do with these terrible lands, so they do what they did in Russia. They start buying vegetables from the nearby village and selling it to the quickly expanding city of Tel Aviv, which starts to expand and is soon going to reach this village. And where this market used to live is exactly the border between the city of Tel Aviv and that village that used to live. And that is how the market starts and starts selling. And this was actually a border area. And just when you came here, there was, I will see it in a minute, there's a mosque there, okay? Mosque, as Tel Aviv starts to expand, the people of Jaffa realize that the city is expanding fast, and they also want to catch territory quickly. So they run as far away as they can from Jaffa, buy a lot of land and build a mosque there. All right? It's all about grabbing land. Back then, we couldn't stand right here. If we were, this is what it looked like. And this sign says danger because you are in the line of fire. So they used to have snipers up there in the minaret, in the tower of the mosque, and anybody passing here would get shot. All right? This is just before 1948. Today, of course, it's a very different story. We'll see the market, and we can stand here happy. Okay, so that was a brief introduction to how this market was started.
And so there was really some interesting stories about, different people who were running different shops, people who had overcome drug addictions and now they're like a kind of a pillar of the community, and people take their young ones to go listen to like how they can rise above. There was a story about a group of individuals who were raised by, I think, deaf and blind people, and overcame, and they ended up running a really nice shop. There was a fish shop that a chef was making sandwiches in, and they had really good food. So uh I don't like fish, by the way. So when we started everything, I'm like, okay, I want to try things. I'm here. I'm very picky, by the way, very picky. And sometimes my stomach can be kind of finicky too. But I'm like, I'm here. Let me try things. There's no point being like across the world and not experiencing the new experience that I'm having. So the first thing they brought out was something that was like wrapped in a leaf, and then a cheese ball. And so the cheese was just very rich, and I don't remember what was wrapped up in the leaf. It wasn't my favorite thing. It was my least favorite thing that I probably ate. The cheese was very rich, and I think it had a vinegary kind of taste. It wasn't my favorite thing either. But the rest of the things that we tried were really good on our food tasting tour.
Okay, surprise and
learned is that as far as Israeli cuisine goes, they don't really have their own thing. And so it's just a lot of like Middle Eastern, Mediterranean kind of food is what you would eat. Like stuff um that you go to like a basic kind of Mediterranean place like over here in the US. That's basically the kind of stuff that you were eating there, like shawarma and falafels and things like that. There's one hummus place where their goal isn't to just have hummus be a side, but to be like the main component. And so there was like three different kinds of hummus. Like there was a Mexican spin on the hummus. It was an interesting, plate, and the bread was so good. We had so much bread.
Instagrammable moments.
And it was delicious. The pitas were so soft and just, you know, amazing. I just there was so much bread and it was so good. We also had like smoothie. We also had this Italian dessert that they had to give it like a Jewish name and stuff in the market. I don't remember what it was, but it was like a reminiscent of like a lobster tail. It was just very thin and stuffed with like this cream sauce, and that was really really good. So that I think that was the last thing that we ate at the market. So it was a good tasting. One thing that I wish I had when I was like exploring Israel, I wish I had like a water bottle with me, to refill. Um, Now the tour bus, they had water bottles for us, and thank God for that. But just did a lot of walking. It was warm most of the time, and I was just chugging along, drinking water like as much as I could. And I just wish I had. There were opportunities where you could fill it up in the hotel or public government buildings and things like that. So I just wish I had brought something like that along. That I have. I just forgot to, I guess I'm contemplating it, but I just didn't bring it. And I wish I had. So if you're going overseas or just doing any kind of traveling, I would recommend that you bring some kind of water bottle or something that you can easily refill, something to keep the water cool for you and so on. It'll just save you a lot of headache and in the future if you can do that. So after we had our food tasting tour, we ended up going to this museum. Now, we didn't go inside the museum. We went to go see this memorial that they have for all these hostages that were taken. And you could see the different signs that were marked because they had come home. And at this point in time, this was after the ceasefire where all the living hostages that had been returned. One thing that was really striking was that there was a group of people, and they would come together and they would sing different songs and just remember the people who were taken and think about their families. And they would have bigger groups at different kind of times. Like there was a smaller group when I arrived and sat with them, and as they were singing songs and just talking to us about why we were there. And so they thanked us for coming and they shared their experience, but they just didn't want these families to think that they were alone.
A thorn and
Thorn, like a thorn in a rose bush.
and the honey, and about asking for peace, and saying that like life have this controversial way of going, that sometimes the fruit that it's not yet
Right, but we pick it,
and or someone pick it, and we are it's a song of hope, saying yes, that's my way of understanding it. Yes, bad things happen, but we can see the good things, and we can pray that one day our kids will grow in a peaceful moment. That happens every day since the beginning of the war, so 767 days, and sometimes it's larger. In the beginning of the war, always we had groups coming here, so it was huge. And now, as you can see, but it's important because here there is like this place for the families of the hostages to be here, and it's also a place of PR for them. So standing here is standing with them and saying that you are not alone. So I always say that there are a lot of ways of protest and go in the streets and say like the most important thing is life, and for us to bring back all those who were alive and those who already were assassinated, but we are waiting for them. So there are a lot of ways of doing that, and our way is praying and singing. So every day, like every other day, someone like every day it happens.
We take turns.
It takes turns. So I'm here almost every once a week, and I think here I'm a rabbi.
Finish the story. It's more important.
So I'm a rabbi, and I think in the last 2 years of war, this is the place that I knew that it's the most important place for me to be. Like I have my community, and we pray together. But being here in the public square and shouting every day, we are waiting for them. I think this is the right thing.
Yeah.
And the families, I think the families know that we are here. Not every day they come, but they know that we are here. They know that if they need a place to sing and no one will ask questions and no one will like make a big deal, like they can just join and they will be welcome. So it's a place for them.
There's just like a really strong national identity that these people have for one another. That was really beautiful to see. It bothers me so much when I think about those videos in New York and other places where they put up images of the hostages and these angry protesters just coming and tearing them down, like we're tearing down images of little babies that have been kidnapped. And I don't know, and some of these people, I don't know, might have believed that it was propaganda, like maybe people weren't actually kidnapped, or maybe people just felt like they deserved it. I don't know. But I just thought that was so terrible. I mean, these are real people who are missing, and their families are missing them. And when I went to the Philippines in the 10th grade, it was really dangerous at the time that we went. They had some different terrorism acts that had happened. The State Department gave an issued a warning like not to go. My dad read it to us, and we were like, well, we prayed about it. We felt good in our spirits. We're like, we still want to go. We still want to do the work for the Lord. And I wanted to go and do the work for the Lord. I also wanted to do the layover in Japan because I was a big anime nut at the time. So there was that, but also in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I believe that God will protect us, one, and if something really happened, I believe that my dad would turn into Rambo and protect us as well, or whatever. But really, the confidence that I had, besides like the Lord, um, was in the United States government. And if something happened, that they would do their darndest to try to get us home. And at this time, President Bush was the president. People were calling him the cowboy. And I just, believe that hype too. And I'm like, if something happens, they will work to get us home. And actually at the time, there was someone who was following us with satellite phones, just checking in to make sure that we were okay. We were suspicious, like, man, this person knows a lot about like American culture or whatever, but he was like a civilian who would volunteer with the State Department because, they have hopes of immigrating over here to the United States too. So that kind of helps them, in their process a bit. But he would just kind of check in, say, hey, they're back during this time or whatever, just to make sure that we weren't taken. But there was, it's a bus of some girls, I think, were taken around the time that we had gone. There was a ferry that was exploded, not too far from the time that we had gone. So it was a dangerous time to be there, for sure. But we just felt like we needed to do that for the Lord. And as I already mentioned, there are people who were kidnapped who were non-American that day, October the 7th. I mean, and as I already mentioned, there are people who were kidnapped who were American, and there were people who were killed who were American. And all these American first people who were like, oh, we just need to concentrate on us, and why are we sending the money, and why are we allied with Israel? So, oh, and that's not our business, and why should we care? I'm like, okay, but Hamas did kill Americans that day, and they have Americans kidnapped. Like, we didn't get our last American hostage until May of this year. So I was always very puzzled by a lot of the commentary that was surrounding October the 7th and the response to October the 7th and the war. And I know I just felt like a lot of people had ill intentions when they were even debating a lot of this stuff, and a lot of bias swaying them certain ways. But I don't know. I had, like I said, I had full confidence when I went in the Philippines that they would do whatever it could to get me home, and just to think that there was a time where there are people who were kidnapped recently, and people just tearing down their images. It just, I don't know, really gets to me. So I thought it was really beautiful, that they never forgot their people, and even the bodies still announcing like we're still praying for them to come home. Well, these people that, they're gone on, they've passed away, but they still want their bodies back, and still think of them as talk of them in terms as if they're still alive and need to be honored in that kind of way. So it was really really beautiful, I guess, how they just honor one another. So then after that, we went to the hotel, and it was a really nice hotel. And there were actually like signatures from different celebrities that were out like in the like lobby, with front entrance and stuff. And you could see One Republic, you could see Justin Bieber, I think 50 Cent, and just all kinds of different folks who got to stay at that hotel. And we took our stuff up to our room, and then had a little bit of time to kind of freshen up before we went to have a short walk, quote unquote. Was not a short walk, but when I think short walk to your restaurant, I don't know, I'm thinking like it's a down a block or two. It was a little bit of a hike. It wasn't like terrible, but I'm glad I still had on like gym shoes. I'm glad I didn't have on sandals. I'm glad I didn't have on flip flops. I'm glad I didn't have on like little heels or whatever, because it was still a bit of a walk. So anyway, we got a little freshen up, and we went and had our walk to dinner, and in the restaurant that we ate at was called the Baba Yaga. Look what we're eating. Baba, Baba Yaga. Which was amazing because I've seen all the John Wicks. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're eating at the Baba Yaga. And so, and they had a nice little spread of different salads and bread and hummus, and uh, they had liver, I think it was. I did not try that. Yeah, that was one thing I'm like, they can keep that experience. I'm good. I'm good. We had, chicken, and I didn't eat the fish, and potatoes and things like that. So yeah, so that was the first night, because after that I came back to the hotel. Some people went to the beach, some people got ice cream. I went back to the hotel, and I did a TikTok, I think. This happened like every night, so I won't explain this in every video, but I would like film a TikTok, and then I would fall asleep before I would hit post. And then I would wake up like an hour later, and then I would finish posting the TikTok, and then I would get in the shower, and then I'd be like wired, to be like wide awake, and it'd be difficult for me to go back to sleep. So it took me a long time to adjust to like the time frame and the jet lag and stuff. And I never really got 6 hours of sleep, not straight, when I was there. But anyway, it was a really incredible first day in Israel, and there's so much more to discuss going forward. Like day two, we went to the Nova Festival, and I got to talk to survivors of October the 7th stuff. It was definitely a heavier day. And then the following day, we did so much, it blew my mind. So I look forward to explaining more of the things that happened on my journey to Israel, which was really, really an incredible time. God bless you guys, and I'll see you next time.